So top tips for co-production, brought to you from Conversations on Co-Production. That's our co-production community that gets together on a monthly basis to talk about all things co-production. My name is David Ford from Expert Link. So by the way, it's free to join our conversations. You can do that using the link below in the descriptions. And whilst you're there, don't forget to hit that like button, as it helps the YouTube algorithms to share this video. So these tips only work if you come from the right place. That's a place of love and compassion, and with a belief in people, their potential, and that collectively we can make a difference. So in no particular order of merit, obviously, because we believe in equality, let's go through those top tips. Okay, so top tip number 1 is don't ask for permission. Learn how to ask for forgiveness. So common sense applies to this, as it does with a lot, if not all, of our tips. We are definitely not saying don't ask if you can burn the system down. Just do it and we'll apologise later. It'll all be okay. That is not what we are saying. What we're saying is that often the ask that you have can get caught up in the bureaucracy. It can get caught up in processes and red tape. What could have started off as a simple request is suddenly flying around the corridors of power, never to be seen again. Or perhaps, because people are people, we are, after all, human beings, it lands on someone's desk who happens to be having a really bad time of it of late and is also overwhelmed at work, and your request either gets left at the bottom of the in tray, or the person just says no because they don't have the time, the space, or the capacity to do what is necessary. Remember, we're all human beings. So top tip number 2. Make sure co-production is what you start with and not what you introduce at a later date. It's really hard to start co-production halfway through a project. If you set out to do a co-production, do it from the beginning, because getting buy-in from stakeholder groups part way through is very difficult, if not impossible. You won't get away with setting something up and then involving stakeholders part way through. It would be like setting up a new project, saying that you're doing co-production, and then making all the decisions yourselves on everything, what the project will do and how it will do it and when it will do it, and then getting all the other stakeholders in and asking them what colour they think the walls should be painted. When that happens, at best it's a consultation or a chat and not co-production. At worst, it's a bloody insult to those involved and to the co-production fraternity. Trust me, when you bring in stakeholders part way through, what you're saying to them is that you either don't trust them or that they're not worthy of being involved from the start. Ask yourself, if it was you on the receiving end of that, would you want to join the co-production team? Do you know, amazingly, I've seen this at various levels around the system. So top tip number 3, don't get caught up in the detail. We often get caught up in the details, don't we? And that whole issue of language and definition is so important. But the same 2 words can mean different things for different people. It's so easy to disappear down the rabbit hole and try and get distinctions and definitions spot on. It must be right. What we could do is just take a step back and say, hey, we know what it means in principle. So rather than get caught up in all of that language, let's just start with the principle and get on with it. So top tip number 4. It is not a solo act. So by definition, co means joint or mutual. In our world of co-production, that means that you can't do it on your own. So the first part of that is you. You shouldn't come from a place of believing that you can or that you own co-production or the project that you're involved in. It is by definition jointly or mutually owned, isn't it? And you don't own it. The second part is getting people to be supporting you and onboarding others or the organisation. So we use the term champions in our conversation, but whatever term you use, there are people who believe in co-production and will support you. They could be staff, volunteers, or people with lived experience, anyone within the organisation and all sorts of levels. So seek them out and get their support. Top tip number 5, trust in the process. You need to trust and believe in the processes or the process of co-production. We know that sometimes that can be difficult. The system often wants clearly defined outcomes before you even start, and they want to know everything that's going to happen. We can be clear, though, about the process, the tools that we'll use, the skills that are needed, but it's difficult to write up everything when it's so dependent on the group, isn't it? So we can also add to this about trust in people involved in the process. Here too, but that comes with a warning around safeguarding. You'll need to balance the need for safeguarding and guiding people through a process. That's a tricky one. The flip side is that you don't want to be patronising either, but often we're working with vulnerable adults, so it's about having the right support for them and being able to say no when they're not ready, or they've got too much maybe going on, or when there hasn't been enough time to explore all the possible outcomes before the decisions are being made. So remember that. Okay, so our final tip number 6 is be brave. Following on the be brave enough thing, it's being brave enough to say no, and it's being strong enough to stand your ground. It's often too easy, isn't it, to say yes or bow down to the requests from the system or power within it. In particular, when we're talking about funders, we give up our high ground, don't we? We don't think that we can hold it and that we need to submit. But actually, there are great examples out there of people, of leaders, of groups who have held on to their position. They've been clear about their co-production, their values and their purpose, and they've said no. There are loads of examples of people and leaders and groups who've just got on with co-production. They haven't asked for permission. They haven't got bogged down in the semantics. They have believed and trusted in the processes, and they have been brave enough to say no when they've needed to. We should take our inspiration from these people and do likewise. Just get on and do it. So that's our top 6 tips for co-production. We'd love to hear what your comments are, or even what your top tips are. So please get in the comments and let us know. And don't forget, whilst you're down there, please hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Guys, that's all for now. I'll see you again with more from our conversations in co-production in a month's time. In the meantime, I love you all. Take care and be safe.
Don't give up. Don't give up. Don't give up. No matter what.